I'm working for the defense staff and a department which is called the Future Relevant Operations with Next Generation Technology and Thinking. Well, probably someone got promoted on coming up with the name. And actually I should say I was working, because from this week onwards I work for another posting in defense. And I would like to share with you some considerations from the security perspective. First of all, the security perspective. Well, what is it all about? Basically, you can compare it to a cat and mouse game. It is all about getting the upper hand, about gaining a strategic or tactical advantage to an opponent or an adversary. And you can also call the success factors. You can to quantity or quality, and that goes together, because in reality it's not only quality. The importance of innovation is that it's outsmarting basically an adversary, but that's the connection with scaling up. You also need mass. If you look to the Ukraine now, what is happening there? Ukraine is standing its ground, more or less, and that all has to do with the qualitative weapon systems that are delivered by Western countries at this moment. And you see on the other hand the mass from the Russian army. If we go back in time, you look to 44, 45, then you see that also quality, so innovation on itself is not enough, because the German tanks were far technologically superior to the Allied tanks, but it took the Allied tanks in one of the last operations took a ratio of 1 to 69, so 1 German tank to 69 Allied tanks to win the operation. This was the operation at Overloon. So that also has to do with exploration of innovations in the security context. You can get the upper hand, you can outsmart your enemy, but of course an action will call for reaction, and at a certain time an innovation will expire, so you have to continuously update your innovations. And that has to do with experiments. So what we need is a continuous stream of experiments, a continuous stream of large-scale experiments in a broad spectrum of technologies, with also a big speed, because you want to have the upper hand continuously. And also it comes with complexity, because if you have a continuous stream and continuous knowledge building, then you can also get to more complex innovations, and more complex innovations, then you get more to the strategic advantage. So that's where the success factors in the security context. What does it mean for scaling up? Well, I call it the scaling up sweet spot, because what we need is actually to utilize the best of all the stakeholders that should be part of the scaling up community, so to say. I also heard something similar in the other presentations, especially from Anne. But what we need is the flexibility of the startups, because they're still flexible, coming up with new ideas. But at the same time, we also need the original equipment manufacturers or corporate manufacturers for their robustness and their scaling up capacity. We need the government organizations to drive the innovation by financing or co-financing, or at least making sure there are finances available, and also taking governments. And we need the knowledge institutions like universities, but also R&D institutes, to validate what comes out of the marketplace. And what we at least need is a long-term focus. We should really see this as a reach-back capacity to frontline units. So when you're in a security context, you always have to think of the worst-case scenario, which in essence in Ultimo is war. So you have frontline units which can reach back all the way to these communities, so that they're continuously adapting, basically. So it's an important adaptive capacity. At the same time, we should take into account these supply chain dependencies, because geopolitical dependencies, for example, in the chip industry, well, you don't want to have any Chinese chips, for instance, in your supply chain, because that makes you dependent, and that's a strategic disadvantage. And at the same time, when it comes to innovating, you see now that we run into a lot of compliance and certification issues already at the starting phase. What we need is, we need a sort of test environment in which those compliance and certification issues are not issues, but that you're free to test, so that in a later stage you can see what is required to certify certain projects. And that concludes my brief.